brings Omar Shmuel, Kol Turit Shabbos Potter Avaloser, Bar Mehanet Plus. Every time it says in the beginning of Shabbos Potter, means Sosem Rabbanon. Potter, you don't get malchus, you don't get punished. Because it's not Osem Midaraisa, it's Osem Rabbanon. Bar Mehanet Plus, except 3 cases, which is Potter or Mutter. That's Potter, and it means like a kill, it's Mutter, it's Rabbanon. They are Tzeidas Tzvi first, capture Tzvi. One of the malachas is Tzeidah. The case is not just that it's allowed, you're allowed to say the Tzvi, you're not allowed to. It's the malachas Tzeidah. It's a special case. In a case where a person was sitting there and there's a Tzvi that was inside the house and the person was sitting by the door and somebody else came over and sat next to him, and then the first guy left. So the second guy is continuing to keep the inside. Really, he's not really doing the malacha. He didn't come there. He didn't do the malacha. Whatever that's the case. So you're allowed to do tzeidas, but that's not negated to our tzeidas nochash. If the nochash is going to might bite a person, then you're allowed to push catch the nochash. And matis mursa, the person has a temple and there's pus there. You're allowed to make a pesach to open it. Clearly, you're allowed to do it. And the way it seems Poshup Shat in the Gemara here, something else, just to later, is what's that the reason why you're allowed to say that's Nochash and Mursa. So it seems like in the Gemara that this goes according to Reb Shimon. That Reb Shimon says that Lochashem is Tzricha L'Gufa is Potter. So there was a Rabbanon, the Rai said there's no use of Lochashem Tzricha L'Gufa. And both of these cases say that's Nochash. And Mapas Mursa is only a Malacha Shem Tzricha L'Gufa. But it's still awesome with the Rabbanon. Because there's Tsar, so the Chachamim took away the Yisur. So therefore, say that's Nochash and Mapas Mursa, but Chachila you're allowed to do it. Even though it's a Malacha Shem Tzricha L'Gufa, which is awesome with the Rabbanon. According to the view, it seems like a whole Malacha Shem Tzricha L'Gufa. It's Mamash awesome with the Rai said. And you can't do it. You can't do a Malacha that I see. The only time you can do a Malacha that I say is if it's Sakon, it's Nefoshes, but if it's not Sakon, it's Nefoshes, you can't do it. But this goes according to Shimon, the whole Malach Hashem Tzricha L'Gufa is also on the Rabbanon. And this happens to be a Malach Hashem Tzricha L'Gufa. When you're catching the Nachash, you're not interested in having the Nachash. You just want to hold him back, he shouldn't bite you. And the same thing, Mapas Mursa. You're not interested in making a Pesach really, just to get out the Leichel. So it's a Malach Hashem Tzricha L'Gufa. So it's not awesome with the ice, it's only awesome with the Rabbanon, and the Shamsar, the Rabbanon were made. That's what it says here. The main thing I'm going to discuss is you look at the Gilead Ashras, which is on the side, he says, Ayin Sahedrin of Kufalabam and Aleph, Berasha di Dramasku, the Leichashim, for the Beir Shevashon. And this din where it says that Seitas Nochash is allowed, so he says, look at the Gemara Sahedrin of Kufalabam with Aleph, and what the Beir Sheva says. So if you look up in the Be'er Sheva, what it says there, what the Gemara says in of Kufal of Amadal, the Lechshin al Hanoch, you're allowed to say Alachash, you're allowed to say certain things that he would say, which would stop the Nochash in track and he wouldn't bite you, he won't be mazik you, you're allowed to say it. And he says, look there and look what Rasha says. Rasha says you're allowed to do it. The aim berezer mishum seder. And it's no Yisra, you're not able on Yisra seder. That's what Rasha says. So it's telling you there that the Gemara is telling you a chidush that you're allowed to catch a nochash, that you're allowed to say a lachash on a nochash, in order he shouldn't bite you. And Rashi says, what is the Gemara telling us? Well, why would you think you are not allowed? You should know there is no reason to say that there. Comes the Sheva asks the Kasha and Rashi. What's the chidush that you're allowed to say a lachash on the nochash and there's no seder? When Shmuel says you're allowed to catch the Nochash. It says here, but say that's Nochash is mutter. So you're allowed to push and catch the Nochash. If you're allowed to catch the Nochash and there's no reason to say that, certainly that you're allowed to say Lachash. Why does the Gemara have to tell you to say Lachash? That's why the Yesheva learns a different pshat. The Yesheva learns that the pshat is not like Rashi. It says, it's telling you that it's not Mishum Refuah. You might think it's also Mishum Refuah. And not only that, he says, I'm telling you that the Tur learns the same way. Because he says that the Tur writes this din in Siman Shin Chof Ches. This din that you're allowed to say Alachash on the Nochosh is in Siman Shin Chof Ches. Shin Chof Ches talks about the din of Refuah. So he puts it there. tell you that it's not also Mishum Refuah, but not because it's not also Mishum Tzeidah, because that's a portion of the Zam. And based on that, he comes to Kasha and the Bis Yosef. He says, from the Tur, I see clearly that the Tur who brings it in Sim Shin Chav Ches means he holds it. The Chidush is that it's not also Mishum Refuah. So it's not like Rashi. But if you look in the Bis Yosef on the Tur, on that Tur, the Bis Yosef writes, the Tur says that you're allowed to say a lachash and a nochash. The Bis Yosef adds, and Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah. He puts Rashi Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah. But if it would be Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah, if the whole Chidush is not Tzeidah, it's a halacha in Hilchos Tzeidah, he would have said it in Siman Shin Tazayan. But since the Tur says in Shin Chav Ches is a Siman that's nothing to do with Tzeidah. So then how could the Bis Yosef say that the Chidush is Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah?
What I mean, Mishum Refuah means that you have a snake bite, and Mishum Refuah, not that you catching a snake.
No, that's you might think it's a get it of refuah. You shouldn't bite it. It's preventive medicine.
Biting you is a
So it comes out from here basically that there are two kashas that the Be'er Sheva asks. If you're going to learn like Rashi, that the Chidush is Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah, we have two problems. One, what's the Chidush? If you are allowed to Tzod Nochash, Kosher V'Gashmi is Kosher Catch Nochash, you're allowed, and Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah. So certainly you're allowed to say a lachash on the nochash. So what's the chidush? Number one. And number two, if you hold this from Tzeidah, then it belongs in Siman Shin Tazayan, which is the halachas of Tzeidah, not in Siman Shin Chav Ches, which is the halachas of the food. The bottom line is that this is a kasha on the Bis Yosef. It's a kasha on he puts it in Shulchan Aruch, and it's a kasha on the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch too, because the Bis Yosef writes this din in Siman Shin Chav Ches in Shulchan Aruch. Before he was talking about Bis Yosef on the Tur, but the Mechaber writes this din in Siman Shin Chav Ches, which is the din of Refuah, and he writes there it's Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah. And the same thing with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe brings in the Siman Shin Chav Ches, and he says it's Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah. It's kedai to see what the Alter Rebbe says. Shin Chav Ches. Nun. It says like this: Loichshin ala nachoshim v'akrabim b'shvil shalei yoziku afal pi shein rochim nachlo ve'ein bekach mishum tzeidah. So he says it in Shin Chav Ches, ein bekach mishum tzeidah. And then he goes on, I'm going to read the next words, because it's going to get to it in a moment. Even if someone says, which is the Rambam is the one that passes, is the only one that passes, even according to him, you're allowed to be leichesh ala nechoshim v'akrabim, and the chidush is ein bekach mishum tzeidah. So the kasha of the Be'er Sheva is the Kasha and the Shulchan Aruch and the Kasha and the Alter Rebbe. Why the Alter Rebbe brings it? So Be'emes, what you could say is like this. One reason I think that it's not a good shot is because it's too good. You know what I mean? See, maybe when Rashi says Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah is a different Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah than the Ein Bezem Mishum Tzeidah when we say you're allowed to catch a nochash. When you're allowed to catch a nochash, it is a malach of tzeidah. It's just a malach of tzeidah which you're allowed to do. By saying a lachash, you're not doing anything. Sitting here and saying a lachash, you're saying Yerotzin Hashem, can you help me? Should you get what you're going to say? That's a different Ein Bezem tzeidah. So by the case of a nochash, tzeidah of nochash, let's see what the Alter Rebbe says. The case of tzeidah of nochash. Shin Tazayan. That's like the Alter Rebbe there. There it talks about Seder. Siman Shin Tazayan, Siman Shin Tazayan, Siv Zayan. Let's see here, Siv Zayan. Oh, here. No, I mean Yud Zayan. I'm looking at Zayan. Yeah. Oh, here. Siman Yud Zayan. I read the words. Kol minei ramosim, shdak lahazik, but the choshev achrabim gave to them. I feel them came a shame manisim shechosik, because otherwise it would be second the first. But I feel ein rotz nachrav at the cloud. And the shecheshes ala osich, and because the yachar or the machrij, you're afraid maybe he'll bite somebody else, or maybe whatever you can. So, and you might not be careful. So you're allowed to do it. Ki mish ain't sodin, ela b'shvili, not so many azayko. You want to get ready. You don't. Halei harizem melocha shein tzrich l'guf. Va'av shekol melocha shein tzrich l'guf apoter. He gave this piece. He says, why are you allowed to? Because it's a melocha shein tzrich l'guf, which is not osam b'derais. I melocha shein tzrich l'guf is poter aval osam b'divrei seifrim. Kan itiru chachamim legamri t'sharash hezek aguf. The chachamim will make clear. So really, this is Seder that you're doing, but it's a Seder in a form of Mechanchim. Then the Alter Rebbe continues. The Rambam. So according to the Rambam, how are you allowed to do this? It's not doing it. We're talking here about actually catching it, but he's not catching it. What's he doing? He's tying him up, whatever. So since it's not doing it the normal way, here we have the Negei Seder. So by the real Seder of a Nochosh, it's Seder. Elamai, or we say it's a Malach Shem. Or even if the whole Mlach Shem Gufa is Osem B'Deraisa, this is a case where it's Misasek Ba'omer. So there are basically Zaytike reasons why the Malach of Seder doesn't apply. When you just Loichesh ala Nochosh, is Ein Mishum Seder. It's not Seder. It's not Seder. Basically, depends how you sing it. And a lot of things depends how you sing it. By the case of the Seidas Nochosh, you have to sing it. You should say that you're not high for the Seder that you're doing. And I give a reason why you're not high. And this one you have to sing. Maybe we should say that. We're going to say that you're not doing anything. Huh?
What is the definition of Seder? Stopping the animal?
No, trapping the animal. This is not trapping. So it's not Seder. Which answers both shilas. Huh? Oh, good. See, now we're going the other direction. Guys, they don't say that at all. Now he says, it's so posh that it's not say that. What's even happening? Good, we'll see. We get to it. All right. So the Chura, this answers both shilas at the same time. Shaili that the Sheva asked, what's the Chidush? The Chidush is that it's not even again to say. You can't say, since you're allowed to be tzod, he's for sure allowed to do this. The Chidush is not just in the din itself. It's a different category. This is something that's basically nothing. And Badafke, the Alter Rebbe or the Chabad does not write it in the dinim of Tzeidah to show you that this is not Tzeidah. He writes it in a different place. Today showing that this is Eivim Shum Tzeidah Klal. That's how it got to work.
It's not familiar. The kasha was that if it's mutter, Tzeidah itself is mutter. It's Magabi, whatever the food makes a difference if it's not Tzeidah. It's Tzeidah.
Whatever, what's enough to will be. We'll see in a second. See exactly what nothing will be.
Those are here as an example of Seder Shekidar.
Yeah, that's not community. It doesn't even have to be Shekidar. Okay, whatever, yeah, but it doesn't, because over there it has to be with the there. We'll see in a second. Now, L'chure, it's someone might say it's not mashma like that in Zayin Shulchan Aruch, and mainly the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Because I just read you what Alter Rebbe says when they get Seder. So the whole idea is that he says here that regular Seder of a Nochosh is a Malach of Seder, but it's a Malach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa. That's why in this case it's Mutter L'Kapkiller. And even according to the Rambam that Malach Shein Tzrich L'Gufa is Chayim Midaraise. In this case it's also because of Misasek. That's what he says in Shimon Shin Tazayim. When you go back to Simon Shin Chav Ches, now, Rebbe seems to be saying the same thing. Now, I'll repeat what I read before. Tifnun. There he spoke about Seder. Afal pi she'ein rotzi machro, ve'ein bekach nish mitzeda. Afilu la'amachayvin den locha she'ein yisricha l'guf. At first glance, it seems that the Rebbe is here repeating what he said over there. The Kitzer. So when it spoke about the regular tzeidah, he explained it's a regular tzeidah, but it's a machshin gufa, and he explains why it's gufa. And then he says even your machshin gufa is chayev. In this case, it's different, and even according to him, it's mutter. And what does he do here? He basically seems to be saying the same thing. He says that you're allowed to be leichesh after the aim bekach mishum tzeidah. Vafilu lo amachayvim mavocha shein tzricha legufa. Look the same thing. Befrat, if you look at the Maramakemis, I'm not talking about the new Maramakemis. The original Maramakemis that's there, which we don't know who wrote them, but the Rebbe once said it's possible that the Rebbe himself wrote it. Al Koponim, the Rebbe said more than once, I remember, Abar Samcha wrote it, maybe it's the Maril, maybe his brother. What does it say here on this? Ayin Simen Shin Yudvov. Which means he's referring back to Simen Shin Yudvov. I know it calls it Shin Yudvov, Shin Tazayan. It goes back to Shin Tazayan. So if you look back at Shin Tazayan, it's Seidah. Elamai, it's a type of Seidah that is a Mloch Shin Tzrichel Guf and it's Mutter and Asilamah. And it does here the same thing, very bekitza. Leichin, Afapishet, Bein Bekach Shin Seidah, Vafilah, Machayim, Mloch Shin. But
Still answer the question for the Beersheba. I see that the Gemara and Rashi, even according to Yehuda, that Amishim Smooth said that.
Yeah, but the way he says here, you're going to say this is a kitzur.
So you can still answer the questions of the Beersheba with such again.
No, his question is, what's the chiddush?
Even according to Yehuda, Amishim said that. Even according
So
to
that's by tzeidah also, by regular tzeidah also. By regular tzeidah it's also. So madach regular tzeidah you could do it. What's the chiddush by leichash? No, we're calling for learning not because of for learning because of like Rashi, that the chiddush is it's not tzeidah. So whichever the chiddush is. No, but what's the chiddush? It's not tzeidah. Nobody. We're not learning. You're saying maybe you can make something else. We're learning. The Sheva learned that Rashi holds Amen Mishum Seidah. That means this is like the same like Seidah, and the chiddush is it's not Seidah. The kasha is if regular Seidah is mutter, why would this be a chiddush? And we're trying to say that we can go according to Rashi and not come in because of Refuah. It's chiddush Refuah also, but it's not because of Refuah. It's because of Seidah. And Rashi and the Alfred is trying to tell us that this has no din of Seidah. It's not the get of Seidah. That's what Alfred is trying to say. But I'm asking, Bechur is not mashma like that because it's mashma that just the kitzur of what it said before. And the raya is because it said, I am Shimmishin Yudvov. So number one, there's no one chiddush. But number two, in a case like this, normally, according to the style, I can't say I'm familiar with the style of Rebbe, he would have written Kidaleil. He always refers back. If this is Posha the Kitzur of what he said, he's in Shin Tazayan. There he says it Bariches, and here is the same thing exactly. If that would be the pshat, he would say, and then the raya that I brought against what I'm saying, because it says Ayin Sin Shuyudbov, I have no idea why is it Ba'ayin. What do you have to be Ma'ayin there for? Doesn't it be Ayin? It doesn't say usually it goes refers back to the place. Ba'ayin, look there. It's no Iyun. The Alter Rebbe is very simple and very clear in Shimon Shinta Zayin. What? This is say the mutter because it's not changed the gufa, and even according to the Rambam, he gives a misasik. So, what's the ayah? Therefore, I want to say for kids, the Alter Rebbe does befeirish not refer to what it says there. And here, when you say "Ein dem should say there," it's not "Ein dem should say." Ein should say there. There's no say there. And I feel la machayv in the blochish and tzricha legufa. He says there's nothing to do with the blochish and tzricha legufa. If you learn regular tzeidah, it has to do with the Malachish and Tzricha L'Gufa. Elamai, if you hold Malachish and Tzricha it's chayev, in this case there's another word that you have to add, it's a saf. But in this case, but the Alter Rebbe says, doesn't make it a kashem. Over there, I'd say they makes a kashem tateretz. The head it is because Malachish and Tzricha L'Gufa. Then there's a kasha. What about according to the Rambam, hold Malachish and Tzricha chayev? What do we do with him? So how come it's mutter? We'll find the teretz. Here is no kasha, no teretz. And that's what he says. Ayin, Shimon, Shinyu. Look over there, you'll realize that what I'm saying here is something else. Punkt verkehrt, what you learn Kipshut, the ayin. He's referring, if you want to know shot here, look over there, you'll figure out the shot, just like over there. I'm saying forget. He's ayin, look over there, and you'll see it's the opposite. So this is the way you can answer Rachlokas. I want to go a little bit into more view in trying to explain the difference between the regular tzeidah and this type of tzeidah. We say the regular tzeidah is a malacha tzeidah. This is a different type. This is not even tzeidah. The Rambam writes, Peirik Yud Halacha Zayit. Yeah, here's the case. Hamapis Shrin B'Shabbos. This is the case of Mapis Mursi. Kedei laharchit pi amake, derech sharei shemeisim. Miskablim l'refuah laharchit pi amake. That's chayim mishpakim patish. You're making a pen, you make a patish. Do melechas hareiv. If tzil heitzim in a leicha shabo, harizim. Halocha chov hei. B'mosim hamazikim. You got Choshen Vakradim with Afa B'Sheim Nisim. Hail v'neshchin muter lots of b'Shabbos. V'hu sheyiskavnu li'notzol mishichos. This is the Rambam. It says Loch Shem Tzvichol V'Chayim. Keitz ha'tu eise. Keif aleim keile. A makif aleim keishron. He does Dei Shalei Yazik. You're allowed to do this. The Rambam says you're allowed to. Comes the Magid Mishnah. The Magid Mishnah says. But the Isi Misha Hiksha Rabbeinu, I see that Rambam, Shaposa Bishnei Elu, Mutter, Kan Lubesov Perizeh, he says side Mapis Murse, and side Tzedas Nochash Mutter, so he asks a simple kasha. Perik Chesh Rosh Shanino, Hatzon Tzech, the Gemara says Kaman was according to the Pshimon, because Nochash and Tzrich to Potter Alem. The whole reason why it's mutter because it's only Amlach Shem Tzrich and you're potter with the rice anyway. It's mutter with the rice, so the Rabban never make. So bring this here. Ba'achar Rabbeinu posek b'peidik lish kireb Yehuda b'Amlach Shem Tzrich l'guf shechayev aleho. The Rambam passes Amlach Shem Tzrich l'guf chayev. Lo malach chayev ve'elu kishem shechayev makapir is different games. So yes, the obvious kasha since the Gemara says it's all because of the Shimon, because Noach Shem Tzrich l'guf potter, and this is Amlach Shem Tzrich l'guf, but the Rambam holds Noach Shem l'guf chayev. The Niravi, the Teretz Zeh, Rabbeinu Zal Sova, that this fits even according to the view. B'hatam, why would it fit even according to the view? Sha'afosas hamurse gmar meloche kishehu laharchiv pi hamarket. If you're going to open a Pesach, make it wider, that's a meloche of maki b'patish, gmar meloche. And not like Rasha and Shumbei. And therefore, kishehu laheitzim imena leicho, eino mar meloche. The EF Shalom Bochi Makina Patish Marmalov Bonin. V'chein say that's Anoch Hashem Tzorkidarka and Miss Asim. We should spoil about it. So basically, what he's saying is, and as he explains it further, in Pei Beis Halacha, he explains it even more. This is what the Rambam holds. This is what the Maggid Mishnah holds. I mentioned it actually the other week. We got another prat. It says that the melocha of makid patish is a type of melocha that if you're not mechavan to do it, it's not a melocha. So this case, if you're not mechavan to do what is the gemar melocha, it's bichlal, not a melocha. So it's melocha phase. Let me look in the Mishnah of the phase. Divrei Rabbeinu shekosa shehachal Torah v'kavanot dir. Kol she'enim miskaven, ein roye be'leimer psikreish v'yom l'chaydet, nishum miskaven, hu eisem meloch. K'she'enim miskaven, ein be'meloch atlal. It's not like a regular enim miskaven. A regular enim miskaven means I'm doing the meloch. Not mechaven to do the meloch. Enim miskaven means I'm schlepping chair and makes a chritz. The malacha, making the chritz is a malacha. If I'm not mechaven, here's machlekes. Ruda says you're chayiv, Shimon says you're potter. But by the malacha of maki b'patish, if you're not mechaven for the malacha, then it's not a malacha. I explained last week why. Maki b'patish, Tikkun Kollel doesn't have a shut tziyur. Every malacha has a tziyur. You do this is the malacha. Whatever you do, and you're intending to make it a Tikkun Kollel, mar malacha, maki b'patish, it's a malacha. And therefore, in this case, it's not. So he says, why? She'enim miskaven ein bei malacha klal. Sharei ein reitz elasis and men Kollel. Not looking for a Kollel, he's not mechaven for it. And if he's not mechaven, how could it be mar malacha? And therefore, according to Reb Shimon, when he says psik reisha is chayiv, by gemar malacha, psik reisha would be potter. Because psik reisha means the malacha is done, you were not mechav. It's a psik reisha, it's a licted mechav. But lepel, if you were not mechav, there is no malacha here. So it's not a malacha. So not a, the same thing. I feel Reb Yehuda Amachayiv and Dover Shem Miskaven. By malacha, it's by makar padash, it's not. So when we look back, so when the Rambam, the Magen explains the Rambam why mapis morse is muter l'chatchila. So he says because there's no malach. And then, as I read, the Magen Mishnah adds the chain say das noch. What does it mean? The chain say das noch. What does by say das noch? So here, that second half of the Magen Mishnah. Again, the first half he explains why mapis morse is muter according to the Rambam because it's not a malacha b'chlal. If it's not malacha, it's malacha. Then he says v'chein. I'd say that's nochash also. What does he mean with that? And he says because it's only misasik ba'alma. On one hand, you could learn that what he means is same idea. That say that's nochash. If you're not mechaven, it's not called seder. Or you could learn that by tzekas nochash he means not because of that. Tzekas nochash is a tzeder. It's a mitzvah of a tzeder. Elomai, since it's misasik, so the chomim were matir. It's not also the rice and the chomim matir because it's shalei kederech. Let's put it this way, because it's shalei kederech, so that's mutter. So how do we learn pshat in the Magen Mishnah? So here we have the Rekeves HaMishnah learns that by tzeder, if you're not mechaven b'shem tzeder, it's not a malach of tzeder. The Moshe, you lock a door. Happens to be at tzvi inside, and you're locking it. Now you captured it. So he says, not the pshat. It's taking maskab to you. It's not seder. I can't lock a door. But what's wrong with locking the door? What's wrong with closing the door? So he says, by meleches seder is the same thing. The same thing we say by meleches makir b'patish. That if you're not mechav, it's not a melacha. By seder, it's also not a melacha. That's what you can learn.
It's still quite different because
Right? So it doesn't have that extreme. That's why there's a discussion whether it's like that or not. But that's how he learns. Actually, the Machzis HaShekel and the Mogen Avraham learns that pshat too. He learns that it's not a melacha b'chol. Melacha seder is not a melacha. Because otherwise it's just closing the door. No, it's nothing. It has no meaning of seder. Seder is when there's something inside. I have nothing to do. I don't even know. I know. I do know. Who cares? I'm doing my thing. I'm not mechav. So if you learn like that, so you could learn pshat in the Magen Mishnah. But the Magen Mishnah says that mapis mursa. Why does the Rambam hold mapis mursa is muter? Because it's not a melacha b'chlal. Why is seder muter? Seder nochosh. V'chein seder nochosh according to this, because it's not a melacha b'chlal. And that's how the Machzis HaShekel says pshat in the Mogen Avraham. That the reason is because it's not a melacha b'chlal. You can learn another way. You can learn the reason is because it's not done kederech. Now, the Rebbe learns clearly. The Rebbe says clearly brings the Markeves HaMishnah. I don't know why he doesn't bring the Machzah Shekel. He brings the Markeves HaMishnah here, because in the Pnim he says, he quotes the union of Tikkun Kela. He quotes the Magen Mishnah. And then he says on the bottom, Yeshno Mareitsim Leimer King Gambin Geim Lech Tzeido, Mekevs HaMishnah, Shabalei Kavona Lotzut, Eino, Einza Begedet Tzeido Klal, Leirak Shu Begedet Eini Miskavon, or it's Chosem Meleches Machsheves. It's not a Melacha. When they answer Pshat based on Nizeh, they answer Kushas Aram. The Rebbe writes these words, Aval Einikim, Shver Averte, Einikim. And he brings an often raya against the Pshat. What we said before, if Lecha Seder is also not a Melacha, you cannot be Chavim, then there's no such thing as psikration. Right? That's what Magen Mishnah said. If you're not Mechavim and a Melacha is done, if it's a psikration, it's also even according to the Pshimah. But if you're any Miskavim, is no Melacha, psikration doesn't help. So he says there's a dima furish babeye v'chein b'shulchan aruch v'shulchan shemuter lifreis machzeles agav kaveres shel dveirim. You're allowed to put a cover on the place of the bees. Ubevat shel yechav lotzut ubeif l'shein psikration. That means that if it would be a psikration, it would be also the im b'lei kavona ein zet say the cloud. He brings the Chalbis here. So the Rebbe learns clearly that the word of the Magen Mishnah does not go on the Melach of Tzeidah. So when the Magen Mishnah says that Mapis Mursa according to the Rambam is mutter because it's not a Melach of B'chlal, and Seidah also, it doesn't mean Seidah also, it's also not a Melach of B'chlal, but the Rebbe learns. Seidah is a malacha. If you're tzad, you're a malacha. Elamai, it's Seidah Miskab. I raya to it. The Machzah Shekel, one of his rayas, that the pshat in Seidah, that it's muter, is not because it's like a derech. What I say the two ways. One way is it's a question that says since you're misasik, you're doing something else. It's not derech, so it's not osir. The other way is that it's poshet on a malacha. So the Machzah Shekel says, how do I know it's the second way? That because it's not a malacha b'chlal. Because it would be like a derech, the Shulchan Aruch would have said that it's after it's like a derech. Now the Alter Rebbe Taka says it's after it's like a derech. Might say that's nochash. So if the Alter Rebbe says that, might say it's nochash. Why? Because he Taka holds. The Rebbe doesn't say there's all arichas that we see from the Alter Rebbe like that. I don't know why he can't at every sikha bring Kollel Mechanchim. He doesn't bring it that the Alter Rebbe brings the Magen Mishnah, because the Alter Rebbe, when the gate saying the Snochish brings the sword of the by Mapis Mursa brings the sword of the Magen Mishnah, and here he says a different sword, and he doesn't say that sword, but he says it has to be Takesh Lekeder. So he's mashmer that by saying that Snochish is a raya that it's Shleik. The reason is Lekeder, not it's a malacha, but the heter is because it's Shleik Keder.
Could use a real trap.
Right.
I don't know if it's Negero. A minute, Alter says that he has to do it only in a way that's not Kedera, or that it is not Kedera.
No.
Doing it that it shouldn't be Noishech is not Kedera.
No, Kefal of Kli, it's only for the. He says only Kefal of Kli, you can't catch every news. He says it's Shleik Keder. So you have to learn that way. Because you see, the Alter Rebbe Taka says different better by Mapis Mursa than by Tzeidas Nochash. Now, one might ask that why do I have to click the Alter Rebbe from Magen Mishnah himself and say, you could see. Magen Mishnah says by Mapis Mursa because there is no Malacha B'chlal. V'chein Tzeidas Nochash, it doesn't say there's no Malacha B'chlal. There's Mesasek, you could see there also it's two different ones. But from the Magen Mishnah itself is no Raya. Since he says it by Basachas, so by Mapis Mursa it's no Malacha. V'chein Tzeidas Nochash, he doesn't have to tie trees again. But the Alter Rebbe says it in two different places. If it's two different places, if it would mean the same thing, he would say that. Is mashmoes of all this that according to the Alter Rebbe, we're learning the Seidas Nochash is a malach of Seidas Nochash. So what do I want to bring out with all this? If we would learn the other way, that like the Kevis HaMishnu learns, Machzah Shekel learns, that say that's Nochash is mutter because it's not Malochet say the Bechlal, then you can't say what I said before, that the Chidush of Leichesh ala Nochash is because here is no Malochet say at all. There's also no Malochet say. So we'd have the same Shaila, Malach, but there it's not Malochet. Here, don't have to tell you it's not a Malochet. But since we're coming now that regular say that's Nochash is a Malochet. Elamai it's a Malochet that's mutter for what reason? Or its reason is because or according to the Rambam, it's mutter because of the Sasek and Shalek Derech. So that's it. That's Nochash. Comes to Leichesh Alamake. Leichesh Alamake is a chidush. It's a new din. It's a din that there is no thing at all. So there's a din that you have to do with Shalek Derech, the whole heter is Shalek Derech. And here it's not because of that. Here it's Bechal. You're not doing anything. You're just. But now comes the second half. If he said, not half, if he said that Shaila you asked before, I'm thinking Shaila, what's the chidush? What's the chidush that it's not Seder in Leichesh? Those that hold by Seder regular is not Miloch is a chidush. It's a svara. You got to think into the svara. The svara is that it's since it's Kayla is whatever. But here it's a double. You didn't do anything. All you did is spoke. The Nochash stopped in his tracks. But you didn't do anything. So I want to say, again, according to something that the Rebbe writes, it's also a chidush of the Rebbe, and something that he writes, and the Chelik Aleph, this was Chelik Aleph, which will also explain this. Chelik Aleph, Parshas Yisrael. Actually, a sikha has to do with chassidus, between machshava and dibur, ma'aseh. But what he tries to say is that the good is that dibur and ma'aseh sometimes could be mitzdaref, which means out of the three, there is a kesher between dibur and ma'aseh more than between machshava and ma'aseh. Machshava is removed, and dibur and ma'aseh go together. It goes in chassidus there. Okay, we got Shabbos. But then he brings the whole thing in the nigla here, and he says like this: Chiluk zeh shebemachshava ledibur metzin gam ba'aloch. He said the Gemara, Itmar, chosmo bekeil. There's a din of leisachsam sheir edition. You can't muzzle the mouth of the sheir while it's working. What happens if he didn't do that? He did it with screaming. Every time the sheir bent down to eat, he screamed, stopped him from eating. Are you chayiv or not? So he says, no, Akima Svosav Hamamais, Akima Speed Hamamais. That the fact that he moved his lips, that's called a mice. Then he brings in Tosefos. It's going to take too long to chazar over the whole button here. And in a certain case, it isn't like that. So Tosefos says, whatever, you have to look for the union. But the bottom line is, we find another case where it's also the Gemara Tosefos says, why is this called mice? It's only dibur, and we find dibur is not called a mice, but because through this dibur a mice happened, it's called afshiyesh b'mice. Because this dibur caused a mice to have. What's the mice? The mice is that the behemoth stopped eating, so it's a dibur sheyesh b'mice. But the Rebbe says, but machshava this won't work. But Lepeli says like this: the pshat is ein kavanas ha-Tosefos. Tosefos says these words that it's dibur sheyesh b'mice because of the mice of the behemoth. Doesn't mean she'odom nenesh al mice shenase al yachid elo shehu ha'yesiva begram nazeh. Can't say that. You're not chayiv for a mice something the behemoth did. How can you call the mice? Elo kavanosam yi. I made it in chidush. Kishe'odom peil mice v'dibure. Hare mekiv sha'maise bo rak al dibure shel odom. Hare zeh hemshech hadibur. Chelik memenu. Sharei bo mekeich hadibur greater. Belochen ein zeh dibur bilvat. Elo yesh bei behadibur atzmi maise. We say that the dibur which caused the maise, the dibur itself contains the maise because it caused it. Vezeu gam teichen Rabbi dibur Rabbi Yechon nakim astiv haba maise. Zeh sha'abheimen nechsemes al yedekei lo odom. Hare zeh asiyas odom. So according to this, we call it, that's Pshat Place, that's what it's Asiyas Odom. Kikim Shekele Bo Al Yakim Aspil. He did something of Dibur, which is a Pula Gashmis, Hakreba, Shaykhs Lamais. Like we said before, Machshava wouldn't work. But if Dibur does it, Dibur is close. Harayapula Dav Heyman, Shebo Al Dezeh, Al De Ahemshim De Hakim. So his speech makes a Maisa. Which is so what do we see Akaponim from here? That there is such a thing as your Dibur causes a Maisa, and that's called that you did the Maisa. So Shaila, you were asking what was the Havamina that you're saying a Lachash. You're saying a Dibur. And the Mela, the snake stops. So what's the Havamina that you should be chayav? And we say, no, it's Abram should say the cloud. It's actually didn't do anything. The Havamina is based on this, because there is a Maisa that's down the pale through your Dibur. And according to this Chidush of Rabbi Yochanan, with the Rebbe in Pshat is if a Dibur causes a Maisa, it's considered that you did the Maisa. So there would be a Havamina that maybe Taka is called a Maisa, and it is called Sefer. Why are we saying, as we're reading it with such a, I'm going to say the cloud, it's a cloud. Yes, people say that because you're doing it. That's the chiddush. Why we have to do mechadish that it's aim on say the cloud. And the shaila is why taki. If he's taki, he's people just gave him a ma'isa, so why taki? So you could make a chilik between the. It's enough to say to have to tell us, but there is a chilik in the case of the chesima chosma b'keil and he's screaming to Nehemiah, because when this I'm saying possibly that over there. The dibur that you're doing is the dibur also. You're stopping the behemoth from eating. You're screaming the behemoth shouldn't eat. So that's the beginning of the maisa of actually the behemoth not being able to eat. So even though it's only a dibur, it didn't do a maisa, but this is hamshah. Over here you could say, and I'm not sure what's the lachash that you have to say. I don't think the lachash is that the snake should get stopped. Just making this up. Maybe the lachash is that the Eibush should help. You shouldn't get nizik by the behemoth. That's not being Seder. So if it's a dibur that's part of the Aveda, that's the beginning of the Meiser. But if it's a dibur that's something, some kind of lachash that's you shouldn't get hurt, and that will make that the nochash will stop. Oh, that dibur is the Meiser that's going to happen is not the hemshich of the dibur. Yeah. Ask all the kids if you see a dog, what do you say? Yeah, but you say you don't say stop. I'm catching you.
Why is that Seder? Stopping the snake from biting is Seder?
No. Pale, he can't move. I don't know if this is what I'm
she's out of the house. Can't move, he can't come to me.
No. You're asking a child the whole thing. Why is it say vice it is? Vice you're stopping it and it's back and it can't move. That's what happened to the lachash. I have no idea. But it's definitely mashma here that we're talking about Seder. We're talking about Seder for sure. It's being caught. The shayla is it the Malachi Seder or not? I'm saying so here the dibur is not like the Mela. That's why there's a chiddush in Gemara. Rashi explains that that's the way you learn according to the B'Yosef, which is basically not like the Be'er Sheva says that it's not because it's Seder, because it's no chiddush. It is a chiddush, and the chiddush is that it's a new gather. It's a new gather, and not Seder Klal, and it all fits. Why? Because the regular Tzod Nochash is a gather of Seder. Not like the Merkavs and Mishnah learns that it's not Seder, so then basically they're the same category. That is Seder, Elamai, it's Mutter, this is not Seder.
Part of the kasha from the Sheva was, I think it's, first of all, there was a Shmois of Rashi that if it was not anything more than just a Derech Seder Kach, it could be also where it's Soiser, the Mishnah Idiot said it's. I say, well, why?
That's his kasha. So
no, I'm saying, why would that? Why would you divide up and say that go put this in Hilchos?
I'm saying because he doesn't want to put it Hilchos. Because to show that it's not a gather of Seder.
Are you allowed to be loichish on a cockroach if you don't have to be?
Yeah.
Even though it's not mazik, even though it's nothing? Why do it?
It's not Seder. It's not Seder.
No, I'm saying. Relation to saying Alexa, hello, the lights.
Yeah, but
also being the same.
Yeah, could be the Since there's a few minutes left, I was thinking I could continue in this thing. Well, I was I can continue this thing a little bit. Got the other union that comes out from the Rebbe's deal in the union of Diburim and Maisa.
Like as that's who Rabbi says I feel not the scarf out. Talking about the time things, talking about your words or your moving away.
Don't take it off. Now, continue down.
It's not dark and already.
Not. So when you laugh in Gemara, so many. It's a real thing. Schapiro has brought down also certain lachashim says it. Certain kameyas you could even write if it's a kaveya beduka that it works. I could go further in the scene with Gabe, but the Rebbe says like a Dibur Gabe shlichus. Not shlichus should be like that, no? I'm a shliach. My Dibur because it's his ma'aser. Oh, it does say so. Obviously, there's Bob here. So, because the Ure, why ain't shlichut about Rabbi? Anyway, I think I'm not going to do that. We just spend the Shalei hates on your cholok. It's something that you get Tisha B'Av. Also, but, didn't come into the Tisha B'Av, but it's also negated the Sichot the Rebbe. The Rebbe brings in Chelik Aleph. What Chelik has very, very little nigla. But there he has the kasha. The Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan said, had I been at the time of the Bisamidish, I would have made a fast on Yud B'Av. Why? Because Rubesh of Bisamidish was burnt on Yud. So some of the Chreinim ask a Shaila, why would he say that? The Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan holds Eishim Shuchitzai. Rabbi Yochanan holds that when you start a fire and it goes on and on and on and it burns, whatever it burns, you are chayiv. Like you throw a chayes, imagine you throw a rock and it hits. You could die also. I didn't do anything over there. I'm standing here. I just pulled the trigger. In my house, I could do what I want in my house. It hit there. You don't say that. You say, so the same thing. If you start a fire, the fire goes, you're chayiv. So the kasha Achrei Mas is based on the Nemuka Yosef and that Nemuka Yosef asks a very simple kasha. If you hold Eishim Shemchitzis, so the Pashtas, what does that mean? That when the Eish goes, it could go for 3 hours and burns. So it's as if everything is happening, but when it's happening, it's as if why are you chayiv? It's as if you're making the fire. So as the fire continues, you are making the fire. That's the Shaila. If he said, how could you light a candle on Friday? It's burning into Shabbos. Burning into Shabbos as if you're burning. So this I heard from Rabbi Shiur 770. The name, I think of Avnei Mezer or his Rebbe was a kosher bro. Huh? The Rebbe's Rebbe, but I remember he said that he had Mansa Rebbe or the Rebbe's Rebbe. Not remember Avnei Mezer. You know what? Maybe if this is only I don't know. I heard that the minute 60 years ago. So he said there's a medrash in Yalkut. The Yalkut says like Savaru Eish the Yom Shafar Eish will become Yom Shabbos. So the Yalkut brings a medrash. Avomuter be'erev Shabbos. What's the medrash? Why would you think it's also? So he says because of this kasha. If you would think it's also by fire, you should maybe. So there's a special pasuk. Especially anyway, that's not what the Muki Yisrael. The Yisrael answers that it's not the pshat that as the fire goes on, as if you're making it work, and therefore there's a kasha. So Shabbos, as the fire is burning, you're making it burn. The pshat is that when you start the fire, everything that's going to happen later is kollel in the fire, in the beginning. So forget the whole fire like you did this before. That's what the Muki Yisrael answers. So according to the Muki Yosef's Teretz, and this is Rabbi Yochanan, who says Eishim Shemchitzei. So when they started, they put the Bisamikdash on fire on test. Everything was kollel there. If everything was kollel in the fire already, then you should make. Then it's good that you made the fast. That's the Rebbe's kasha. The Rebbe, I mean, he quotes it. The Rebbe answers that when do we say this only by a human being? When you throw a chayes, you can't take it back. If you can't take it back, we consider it everything that is going to happen already in the beginning. But by the Eibush to make this, by the Eibush there, we could take it back. There's nothing that you can't take it back, you can take it back. But maybe you can't say by him that wherever he started, already is scale. That's why the Yechon said, if I'd be there, I would have made it here. So tell you the honest truth, I don't understand what the Rebbe says. By chaitz, the reason why it is because you can't take it back. By a fire, you can't stop it. By a fire, if you start a fire and it goes on for 3 hours, you couldn't stop it. You could have stopped it. You can't say you're only chayiv if you can't stop it. And if you could stop it, you're not chayiv. If you can't stop it, you're chayiv. If you could stop it and you didn't, chavad chayiv. So I don't understand. If you read the Werther, it's not clear. He says there by chaitz, and he says the same thing, and he goes out answering the shadow of the fire. The fire is not like that. So I want to say pshat must be the words that are deichik, what I'm going to say, because it doesn't say that. But it's not the words whether you could stop it or not. The shaila is, will it continue automatically, but derech hamele continue going? That's the word. By a human being, if you start a fire, automatically, if you don't stop it, it's going to continue. As long as there is things to burn, it's going to burn, it's going to continue. Not that you could stop it or not. It's going to continue with derech hamele. By a chaitz avadir. By a chaitz, use the word, you can't stop it. That's it, it's going to go automatically. So here also. So when is something that's going to go automatic? So when you start it, and if you let it go, it's going to go automatic, who knows how far. So everything that happens later is included in it. But by the Eivish there, you can't say the fire started and it's going automatic. Every second, Eivish machadish. The fact that the fire is continuing is because the Eivish is making those. It's not a derech hamele b'kazach. If it's not a derech hamele b'kazach, so we don't say it's all colon before. So that's what maybe the Rebbe means. In that kufet, it's not negated this fear of Tishba. The thing that the automatic is going to go. Why is it taka kollel lechatchila? I once saw a guy writes in Sefer. I saw this myself, and this was a good laugh. Why taka in chayyim? He says because when you start a fire, the etzem it's going to go and go and go. The etzem every time you start a fire, the kayach you're burning the whole world. And then when it only burns one house, you know why you put there for the whole world? Because there was no hezek. No hezek. So you have to, but otherwise the etzem is, so anything that got burned was nichlel. Everything is nichlel, no? The shot is when it happens, whatever gets burned works from the freya. That's what you have to say, and then we say it's called whatever the shot is. But this shot in Sikha, I would assume that that's what he means. That anything that is the derech memele, we say it's called. Because when it happens, it's all included before the freya, whatever, because it's automatic and happen. But by the Eivish, you can't say it. That's why he said that by the Eivish, since it's burning on Yudbov, we should have tested Yudbov. Hopefully, Yom HaMei will be chosen to Simcha. Amen.